If you've played golf for any amount of time, you may have heard the phrase drive for show and putt for dough. Meow. But if you're a statistically savvy golfer, you may also know that driving distance has a higher correlation with lower scores than putting. This is why everybody in the golf world, myself included, has been on a binge to increase our club head speed and our driving distance, and it's had some interesting effects for a lot of us.
Oh, hates it left. That's bad for a front left pin too. Didn't hit the best drive, but it looks for sure he's about to go 3 up.
As it stands today, I am currently suffering from a condition known as TAP, trash putting. It's a very serious ailment that affects millions of golfers around the world. Unfortunately, we might just have a cure in sight. Now, I know what the strokes gained data and the statistics say, but the problem that I have with golf data is that it can sometimes be misleading when applied to the individual. These broad statements usually make sense if, and that's a big if, you're also competent in the other skill sets of golf: driving, approach, scrambling, and putting. So, what does a competent putter look like? I am glad that you asked that question. I know you didn't ask it, but I'm asking it for you. I've recently signed up for Phil Kenyons' Putting Academy. He's a putting instructor that has worked with a lot of professional PGA Tour players, most notably Justin Rose, and he's gotten a lot of attention after Justin Rose's amazing show at the Masters, where I think he gained something like 5 1/4 or 5.14 strokes just in putting on the green. Today, we're going to talk about why I hired a putting coach, what it is that he's teaching me, and what I think it means to become a competent putter. Let's do it right now. Thank you very much for tuning in to my YouTube channel. My name is Kennie. Some of you may know me as Kennie Kat. I am a competitive golfer. My goal is to help you improve your golf faster by learning from some of my successes and also some of my failures. If you want to know training aids, what practice guides, and what stuff I'm working on with my coach that could possibly help you improve your game faster, hit that subscribe button below. I release free content every single week. Before we jump into the putting, I realize that I haven't done a recap of anything that's happened with tournaments recently, so let me just talk a little bit about that, and I've got some scores down here that I want to talk about. So, I've been having some, let's just say, interesting performances at tournaments. I shot an 84 at Lone Tree, 88 at Mesa Country Club, 76 at Raven, and then most recently I shot a 94 at a club called Lookout Mountain. And if we look at the stats across the board, we see the same trends. I drive the ball decently, my short game is solid, my approach play is manageable, and while I've been able to collect over $1,200 in skins, I am living and dying by my putting. And my only sub-80 round came on a day where I just so happened to hit a few close to the pin, but really I happened to hold a lot of putts. And I'm talking about Justin Rose, the Masters amount of putts. And it's certainly not because I drove it any longer. I actually haven't had a driver in the bag for the last 2 tournaments that I've played. So what do I think makes me competent? Allow me to get all Dr. Phil on y'all and get into some psychology. I jotted some notes down. I think competence is a combination of skills, abilities, and knowledge. Take, for example, my driving. I've developed the skill of striking the ball in a good place on the face with a controllable face angle that allows me to have a consistent shot shape and a manageable shot dispersion. I've also increased my body's physical ability to swing the club faster and more reliably. And the knowledge of how I apply these is what has helped me to become a competent driver of the golf ball. Working with my instructor, Kurt, has helped me understand how to manage the skill of strike and face. And working with Scott Fawcett's Decade has given me the knowledge of understanding how to apply the skills that I have and to get the best performance and strategy while I'm out on the course. Lookout Mountain is a very tight course with a lot of blind tee shots, and I've never played it before. And even though I shot a 94, I still managed to hit 92% of my fairways. After all, competence breeds confidence. But when it comes to putting, of course, we all have the ability to physically swing a putter. That's not that difficult. I have the skills to reasonably start the ball on line and reasonably control my distance. I'm not the strongest of green readers. But what really became apparent at the tournament at Lookout Mountain was that I don't understand what my tendencies are when I putt, and I really don't know how to adjust those tendencies, and I don't really have a system that allows me to gain competency with the putter and thus feel confident when I'm making putts. So when I went to the practice range and started rolling putts, the stimp was probably around a 10, which is something that I'm used to at tournaments. But once we started a shotgun format and drove through the windy, mountain desert course, I noticed that there were random greenskeepers on random greens that were absolutely drenching the greens with water. And some of you down that lens are obviously a lot more intelligent with golf IQ than I am, and you definitely know the chaos that was about to ensue when greenskeepers are out at 8 o'clock absolutely drenching the greens.
This place was Armageddon. There was a firefight!
The greenskeepers were very aware that the greens were way too fast, and they were trying to hurry up and drench the greens with water so they could slow them down for the tournament, but they weren't able to get to all the greens, and unfortunately what ensued was we were putting on greens that were probably rolling at a stimp of 9 and 10, and then you would get to the next green that wasn't water, and it would literally be rolling at like a 13, possibly a 14. I'm talking about lightning fast, and then you would get to another green, and it would be somewhere in between those two stimps. Needless to say, frustrations were running high.
Oi mate, shut it, pal. He asked you nicely a minute ago, now I'm asking you. Shut it.
Not in just my group, but multiple groups around the course. Like, there were verbal spats and tiffs in my foursome. I could overhear other people on adjacent greens that were very upset and frustrated. Like, it was definitely difficult to manage the conditions of having greens that range from lightning fast to, soggy and slow. But it wasn't the tight fairways and lost desert balls. It was the fact that most of us had absolutely no putting system to adapt to these changing conditions. And it really just showed that most golfers, even competitive golfers, are just not competent putters. Drive for show, putt for dough may not be true for golfers who are very competent at putting, but most of us, myself included, are incompetent putters. But don't take my word for it. Go to your local driving range and look at the lines and rows of golfers with training aids. They're going to have cameras and tripods set up. People are going to be working on their swings and doing all these practice routines, and that's what you're going to see on a driving range. Go over to the putting green and stand there for 45 minutes and watch the random, completely unadulterated chaos ensue. But prove me wrong in the comment sections below. What do you see on the practice putting green? Do you see organized, structured golfers with training aids filming their putting strokes? Or do you see what I also see, which is a lot of uncoordinated chaos? So I signed up for Phil Kenyons Putting Academy. He charges $549, and it's a year-long subscription, and it has a 12-week introductory program that allows you to build a fundamental system around understanding your putting stroke, your putting alignment, your putting speed and distance control, basically his entire philosophy that will allow you to build a system that will help you become a competent putter. And I don't need to speak to Phil Kenyons. His resume speaks for itself. If you don't believe me, do a Google search on him. You'll see all the amazing work that he's done and how highly regarded he is in the entire golf industry for his putting specific knowledge. My goal isn't just to improve my putting. I've already seen improvements in just the 2 weeks that I've been doing the program. My goal is to develop a system that will allow me to be competent at putting. But most importantly, I want to build a system and a routine that I can adapt to fit whatever course conditions are thrown at me so that I feel as confident on the putting greens as I do when I'm standing on a tee box. I will do a review as I further progress into Phil Kenyons Putting Academy, but I wanted to share with you some of my performance baselines and some tests that you can do to maybe decide if it's time that you start realizing that your putting isn't exactly as good as you want it to be. So the 3 tests I've done were the 5-foot, 10-foot, and 15-foot median drills, and the scoring works basically like this for these 3 different drills. If you hold the putt, you get 2 points. If you miss the putt, you get 0 points. If you leave the putt short, you deduct 1 point. And if you 3-putt from any of these tests, you lose 3 points total. So you start with the 5-foot median drill and basically working on a practice green. You find however many random holes that you want to find, and every time you're basically giving yourself somewhere around a 5-foot putt. Your goal is to get to a score of 15, and you count how many putts it takes you. The best players on the PGA Tour are able to do this in 10. That means they are basically holding 80% of the putts from this distance, which makes sense. My personal scoring average, or my personal median score, was 15. And the reason we call this a median drill is because you repeat this process 5 times. You subtract the 2 highest and the 2 lowest numbers, and you take that number that's right in the middle, and that's your median score. Then you jump over to 10 feet, and again, it's the same thing. 2 points if you make one, 0 points if you miss. You subtract 1 point if you leave it short, and you subtract 3 points if you 3-putt it. The goal is to get to 10 points as quickly as possible. And you do this again 5 times around however many different putting holes you have on the practice green, all the time, different putts, somewhere around that 10 feet. Some can be 10 feet, 11 feet, 9 feet, but somewhere in that range. And the best players on the PGA Tour are able to do this in 11 putts, and the worst putters on the PGA Tour are able to do this in 17. My personal score median was 17. Then you get over to 15 foot with the exact same criteria, working around the practice green, making sure that you give yourself a different putt, a different hole if possible, working somewhere in that 15-foot range, 15 feet, 14 feet, 16 feet, somewhere within that range. And your goal is to get to 5 points. The best putters on the PGA Tour are able to do this in 11 putts. The worst putters on the PGA Tour are able to do this in 18 putts. My personal median score was 17. So drive for show, putt for dough. It's still true for a lot of golfers. If you're somebody that's hitting a lot of tee shots out of bounds, off the tee, like that's a whole separate issue. You're taking penalty shots. It's not really distance that's hurting you. But being a competent putter, it's like you have to be a competent putter in order to maximize your gains from distance. Like I know the data says that the best putters don't make the most money on tour, but that's because the best putters are all in this very tight, finite group, and there's not a lot of separation value. But when you get to the best drivers, there's a lot of separation value. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but I would say if you're able to hit the ball about 240 or 250 yards, you're probably going to see the biggest gains from being able to scramble and putt very well. Being a competent putter is the way to capitalize on all the other skill sets that you are working on, whether it be approach play, whether it be driving, whether it be, scrambling. I'm super excited to share with you some of what's going on with my putting journey, and obviously as this continues to improve, I will give you updates on where I am. But I guess the overarching goal of this video is I spent a lot of time increasing my ability to drive the ball further, right? Working out, training, swinging faster, and those had tremendous gains. They really did. But if you're a golfer that doesn't have the time and the dedication to be in a gym 3 days a week and swing training 2 days a week, and you really just want to work on what's going to help you drop your scores the fastest with 20 minutes a day of practice, I gotta be honest, looking at the flat stick would not be a bad place to start. That's really all I got for you. As always, thank you very much for watching my YouTube channel. Deuces, people. Let's keep it rolling.